So part one, we went over all of the installation, setup, configuration of the platform, and now it's going to be going into some of the recovery options. So if you missed our previous session where we were going through and setting up the solution, let us know, or let Cheryl know. We can definitely make sure you guys get that previous recording to see that, because this is the second part where we'll be actually going over some of the recovery options. Okay. All right, moving on to the next slide here. All right, so here at Axient, what are we really trying to do and help our MSPs with is really just consolidate your potential vendor sprawl that you've got for backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So with that, you can see we've got endpoint backup for your desktops, laptops with our direct to cloud. We've got, and that also kind of ties into the no hardware BDR. Again, giving you that ability to back up servers directly to our data center. Then we've got turnkey BDR. So yes, you can buy appliances from us, you can lease appliances from us, or you can build or bring your own. Okay. And then of course on the far right there, you can see that we'll protect stuff that's in AWS or Azure or Google. Now these are the servers or systems in those platforms. So Azure VMs, AWS VMs, Google VMs, the actual servers. That is what we can back up directly from that cloud, that infrastructure, to our data center. All right, and how we're doing all of this is with Axient's chain-free technology. Okay, so we're one of the only vendors in the market space. You're going to notice that as I go through this kind of demonstration, I discourage using the word vendors, because we like to treat our MSPs as actual partners, and we're not just a vendor. We want to actually help you guys grow. So yeah, you'll kind of hear me kind of intermix those, but I really like to say we're partners in this. But with chain-free technology, you're only going to send us one full backup. After that, it is incrementals from that point on. You're never going to have to worry about sending us that full 3 terabyte system again once we've got the initial backup. Short of you uninstalling the platform and then reinstalling again, you'll never have to send us that full data set again. It's just incrementals forever, and each and every one of our recovery points are their own self-contained image of that system from that particular point in time. And we'll go over some of the recovery options when I actually get us into the UI and into the demonstration. Okay. But some of these things that can help with the chain-free aspect is, number one, the appliances. We can actually utilize more of the storage on an appliance and still be able to allow you to virtualize. In fact, you can actually use up to 75 to 80% of the storage on an appliance and still be able to virtualize. Now that's a big difference than some of the other vendors that are out there. Normally if you get, close to 50% utilization, they start calling you, asking you to upgrade the hardware. No point in that. So with us, we give you that ability to use 70, 80%. You get to customize your on-prem retention differently than what you can keep in our cloud. That's the other nice thing about this solution, is the way our licensing is done is just per server or per workstation. Now, yes, we are going to provide you 3 terabytes of storage per server, 300 gigs for a workstation, but all of that is pooled at your MSP level. Okay, but again, we do give you that ability to customize that retention on-prem and in our cloud, included in that licensing cost, whether they need 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, 7, 10, you get to customize that working with your end client. All right, one of the other benefits that Axient, or the X360Recover solution, provides, and I say Axient too with this, is because all of our solutions are backed by the Axient air gap. That means you as a technician, if you go in and accidentally delete a recovery point or delete a protected system, give us a call. we can actually rehydrate that, repopulate that right back into the UI. Now, this is also good for scenarios where there's a malicious actor or a hacker. We all heard, many years ago, well, not too far in the past, but there was a RMM company that got hacked. That led to quite a few partners, content, passwords being breached, and some MSPs were heavily impacted, because these hackers now had keys to the kingdom, which means they had access to backup software and deleting content. Well, that is why we have this air gap policy in place. And it's not just a few hours. You can give us a call up to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks. I wouldn't push it past 3 weeks, but you can still give us a call and we can rehydrate that content right back into the UI. All right, this is our deployment diagram. So in addition to some of those benefits that we kind of mentioned, the solution is pretty flexible when it comes to deployment. I mean, really, at the end of the day, what are you trying to do is you're trying to help answer that age-old question of what's the recovery time objective that we're trying to establish for this device or for this client, for this organization. Different devices have potentially sometimes different SLAs. Well, that's what we want to try and help is instead of having 4 different products that can handle those different types of SLA requests, we wanted to create one platform that can help address all of those different SLA requests, which is one platform, just depending on how you have it deployed. So today we are going to be talking about the direct cloud and some of the recovery options. But you can also see on the far right-hand side of your screen, we've got our appliance-based model, where it's much like some of the other vendors that are out there, Datto, Kaseya, Unitrends, where there's an on-site appliance doing backups and it can virtualize and stuff like that. Yes, we have that too. But again, today we're going to be talking about the direct to cloud, where I could be backing up servers or workstations. And then just again, depending on how I have the solution deployed, what are some of the expected restoration times? Okay. And then, of course, with that included in the X360Recover platform is our virtual office, that ability for business continuity, disaster recovery purposes, or even DR testing, that ability to spin that content up in the Axient data center with a sub 1 hour SLA. And that's all managed by you, the MSP. You do not have to interact with Axient in order to do DR testing and or a production DR spin up for a client in our data center, all self-managed by the MSP, okay, which is unique. And we've got a few fun things that I'll kind of go over in the demonstration that kind of show how we can help speed that process up, make it more automated. All right, we are here in the business of making sure that we can help cure data loss, right? Make sure we've got backups that are immutable. We've got the air gap, so you're covered. It's kind of an additional insurance policy. But again, just help our MSPs grow. And with that, I'll take us into the actual demonstration for you guys. All right. So move this up here. All right. So here, this is the Axient Partner Portal where you can have access to any of the solutions that Axient has to offer. Support information, tickets, contact information, training, all of that can be accessed here. But we're going to dive into the actual X360Recover product itself. And from here, this is the main RMC, the remote management console. And then we're going to dive into the vaults, which is where our direct to cloud is deployed and where you can manage some of the recoveries for direct to cloud. So this is going to take us into your multi-tenant vault. So one vault to rule them all, especially if you've got a bunch of customers here in the US, they can have one vault. I'll be all all in the same vault. You've got a customer in Canada, you can have a vault set up in our Canadian data center and have your Canadian customers go to that data center, because we all know that they're real sticklers about their data transgressing the border there. But again, we try to make it easy. So here, diving in, I can see all of my organizations. From here, we're going to dive into one of the machines that I've got being protected with direct to cloud. And then from here, I kind of went over last time on how all of this gets set up. In this scenario with this particular device, you can see I do have local cache set up. So when it comes to talking about restorations, because I have this local cache set up, it's going to be much quicker, much faster, because I have some of that data locally instead of pulling all that data down from the cloud. You can see I've got about 284 gigs of data on this particular system. And I like pulling up or utilizing this fantastic tool, our recovery time objective calculator. So down here, I can plug in what kind of speeds and feeds I've got into the Axient data center, which you can test from a client site right there. This is what I know I have download speed wise directly into the data center. Yes, I'm based outside of Dallas, Texas, in the sticks, I guess you could say. And cowboys and their horses go faster than my internet does, but I digress. We'll leave that for another conversation. So you plug that information in here. I'll dial this down because I know how big my system is. It's roughly around 250 gigs in space. And then looking at over here on the far right at some of my recovery time results, obviously, if I was to have to pull all of this down from our data center with just a normal FTP client, it would take me about 4 hours. But because I have local cache, you can see that that shrinks down to just, well under an hour and a half. So that's a dramatic decrease on the amount of time that it would take me to recover my laptop in this scenario with that amount of data. And of course, obviously, as the amount of data goes up, obviously you can see where that saving can be instrumental, right? So it's a great utility, and I can make sure that Cheryl provides this out as well. But well, you'll also have access to the recording as well, so you can be able to get access to this. But it's just info.axient.com and the RTO-calculator. So nice, simple, easy. But yeah, now kind of going back over here to the vault, going into some of the recovery options down here, I've got mount. First option we'll kind of talk about or go over. This is going to allow me to see all the files and folders from that system from that particular point in time. And so by doing that, it's going to bring you over here to the file browser section, where it's just kind of like an online NTFS file browser of my system from that particular point in time. Now, this is just one way that you can help end clients get access to their data and help them restore it. And then from here, I'll just come over into my organization. I can go into mounted volumes. There's my laptop. There's the volume. And then from here, I can dive in specifically looking for whatever I need to find, grab. And then from here, once I've found that content, give me a second here. Let's see if I can find just something. Or just as an example, right click, download. Now this is going to give you or your technician the ability to download it directly to their device and then use your RMM tool to push that content back to the end user kind of behind the scenes. That's great. Quick, easy way, good for smaller files, small subsets of data. A great, quick, and easy way to get that content back to the end user. Now, if we're starting to talk about larger sets of content or large quantity of files, or maybe like a SQL database or something like that that needs to be restored back to an end client's server on-prem. Would I recommend this method? Probably not. I would actually probably go over here to the network sharing section and enable FTPS. And then use my FTP application, WinSCP, FileZilla, there's a ton of them out there. And be able to connect into the vault, be able to access or pull down that data that way. Again, that's the second method. There's a third method. The third method you can get over here from the download section, and it's called the Recovery Center application. This application can be installed somewhere inside the client's environment. I've already got it installed here on my system. Let me move it up onto my main screen here. Oops, come on, here we go. Now, when you launch this application, it's going to ask you or your technician to log in. Same login information as you're accessing the main partner portal, that partner.axient.com. But once you log in, hit Start New Recovery, and you're going to be presented with some options here. Well, as you notice, one of these is the ability to recover individual files or folders. Now here, I'm just going to go through just a quick way of being able to get access to that content. Click here. This is going to pull from the actual Axient data center, but this has the ability to look at an on-site appliance or a vault, maybe a private vault that you guys have in your data center, if that's something that you guys have or offer, not a requirement. And then here you'll just point us to the system that you're looking to recover data from. And then on the next screen here, you're going to choose your recovery point. So what point in time are we going to be looking at? Now, the local cache that I have set up is only keeping 7 days worth of the most recent content. So yes, I could choose one of these more recent recovery points, but even in this scenario, even if I was to choose something from the 30th, right, or maybe even further back, excuse me, this platform, this application has the ability to put stuff together for you. Meaning if that local cache on-prem has 90% of the content, but it's missing 10% of it, what the application does is it'll reach out to the vault and say, hey, stream that other 10% to me. So that way, when you're going through this process, oops, I didn't actually choose the time. That would be helpful there. It'll actually present you with 100% of that content, even though in the background, it's streaming that other percentage from the vault. So again, very useful way being able to get access to that client's data and just present that content back to the end user. Now, what this one's going to do is it's actually going to do a mount of that volume. And here you can see I can have it plug in the credentials for the local cache. But if I was to just do this, it'll actually mount it as a volume. Basically attach it as a nice SCSI mounted volume and allow me to, I can do searches, right-click copy, right-click paste. I can do drag drop. I can do robo copy. I've got a few different ways that I can manipulate that backup data and get it back onto the end client system. So again, a very powerful tool giving you various different ways to recover client data. All right, now of course, that's just some of the methods that this Recovery Center tool has. As I go through the Start New Recovery, as you can see down there at the bottom, it can also help you do a bare metal restore, utilizing the local cache again, so that way you're not having to pull or stream all of that data down from the Axient data center. It'll use what it has in the local cache, again, in order to help speed up that bare metal restore process. Then of course you've got virtual disk export. So when I go through this method, you've got the ability to choose what flavor of export you want it to be. Again, this is a fantastic way of being able to present a VHD or a VMDK to either VMware or Hyper-V and be able to get that client's environment up and running on that other host, because we are presenting the VHD or the VMDK and allow you to get that system up and running while you're trying to figure out what's going on with the production system. Now, again, this requirement would mean that you'd have to have a spare Hyper-V host or a machine that has Hyper-V that has some processing power and memory available. And it's very similar to this other method back here of the just instantly virtualize it. Now, with this, you have to have a Hyper-V host. We'll go through the process as you walk through this wizard. We'll actually stand that machine up in Hyper-V without you actually having open up the Hyper-V manager console. Okay, so it's a great way of offering yet another way to get a client environment system up and running in the event of a disaster, and maybe they don't have an appliance, right? So a great alternative. All right. So that goes over the Recovery Center application. And then, of course, coming back over here into the protected systems. Actually, I got to pay attention to time here real quick, too. But, you've also got the export from here to where we can export this as a virtual machine and put it on a USB drive, send it to you, potentially even overnight as well. So, again, giving our partners, our MSPs, another way to be able to access the content that's stored in our data center and a way to get clients back up and running. But the other big thing that I definitely want to make sure I cover, go over, is Axient's virtual office, that ability to get a client up and running in the Axient data center in under an hour. Now here, to do that, you're here in our remote management console, you're coming into clients, you'll choose the client organization that you want to get spun up in the Axient's data center. And then from this screen right here, there's two different methods. There's the manual method, the recovery wizard, that will walk you through step by step, picking the devices, picking the recovery point, assigning processing power, assigning memory, and then setting up essentially a blank router. How do you want to get the client connected in? What DHCP settings? Is there any port forwarding rules? All of that stuff it's going to ask you through. I did this the other day for my environment. I've got about 7 systems here at my house that I back up with Axient. It took me about 34 minutes roughly to stand up all 7 systems with 3.5 terabytes and a VPN connection. Definitely under an hour, but that was actually the longest method I could actually take. Because the shorter or more preferred method, especially when you sign an organization up and you want to use or deploy this platform for them, is to go ahead and set up a runbook. This is where we start to get into some of the automation. So in here, I've already got a runbook set up, so I'm just going to edit this particular one. You'll give it a name. You're going to pick and choose the devices that you want to spin up. You're then going to choose the boot order, processing power, memory. If you've got a domain controller like mine that needs a cup of coffee and a donut before anything else communicate with it, well, you can set up your other systems to have a 5-minute wait time. Give that domain controller enough time to, wake up and smell the roses. Then you're going to come into that essential blank router page, but you can pre-configure this, essentially allowing you to set this up ahead of time and save all of these settings so that when you do need to do that quarterly DR test for that client, or God forbid, a hurricane blows through and you need to actually get them up and running, if you've got this set up ahead of time, you're just coming in here, selecting the runbook, and then clicking Run Runbook. And this will automate the entire boot up process. Now, I've got a partner that's based down in Florida. It was last year or the year before. He had 9 of his clients get impacted by one of the hurricanes that blew through Florida, on the west coast of Florida. Well, in that scenario, at 12:30 at night, partner was already thinking, man, this is going to be one heck of a long night. But in actuality, because he was using Axient, he was able to go back to bed at 2:30 in the morning. Now, he actually talked to me afterwards and he said the The reason wasn't because of you that I went to bed at 2:30. I had the environments up and running well under an hour. He said 9 client environments were up and running in under 30 minutes. He said the thing that took the most amount of time was me actually writing emails to the clients with how to get connected, or letting them know that they have essentially failed over into the Axient data center because their locations got impacted by the hurricane. He said, now, lesson learned, I now have email templates for when that stuff happens, but the software was able to get them up and running in 30 minutes. All 9 of his clients, all different environments. That's a huge testimony to the virtual office runbooks. And by the way, at this time, he did not interact with support. Of course, we tried. We gave him a call, said, hey, do you need any help? Do you need any assistance? He was like, no, I got this. But that's all he said to him. No other assistance was needed, and he was able to get all 9 clients up, VPN connections, all their production systems up and running in the Axient data center. So that's a huge testimonial about this platform. And the fact that even in that scenario, we heard Florida's governor declare a natural disaster, and Axient actually helped out. We kind of actually told our partners, hey, look, we get it. It's a natural disaster. Don't worry about that 30-day timer, because that is also something that we include. We include 30 calendar days per device worth of spin up included in your licensing cost. But we went that extra mile and said, look, we understand it's a natural disaster. We're here to help. And we said, don't worry about that 30-day timer, because cleanup's probably going to be a little messy, a little bit longer. Yeah, I wish I could order a piece of hardware now from Dell, HP, or Lenovo and be guaranteed that it's going to be there in under 2 weeks. But nowadays, we don't have that luxury. Sometimes it takes 4, 5, 6 weeks just to get a new piece of hardware. It might have gotten a little better, but those times have happened. And that's where we want to help our partners. Again, a reason why I go back to stressing that importance of this is a partnership. We want to help. We don't want to vendor nickel and dime you, right? So work with us. We're going to work with you. All right. Now, I definitely know we're kind of coming up close on time here, so I want to leave time for any questions. I'm looking here. I do see one question that came in. Great. So the question is, where does Axient save the data? East Coast, West Coast, etc. That's a fantastic question. We actually have 4 data centers throughout the globe. We've got 2 here in the US. We've got 1 in Salt Lake City, 1 in Atlanta, Georgia. We've got our Canadian data center is Kelowna, British Columbia. And then our other data center in Europe is actually in Amsterdam. And before anybody asks, unfortunately, we don't do tours. I wish we did. I already tried, but hopefully that helps answer that question for you. All right. I don't see any other questions. Cheryl, are you seeing anything come in?
I did see one more question come in, and they said, is Virtual Office available for D2C with private cloud?
Great question. And the answer, unfortunately, is no. So any of that data that's residing in the Axient data center, you've got the virtual office. When it comes to our partners that have private cloud and the vaults in their own data centers, you do have the ability of spinning up those systems on the vault in your private cloud. But as far as the networking side is concerned, no, we don't have any control over that. So that is something that our MSPs, our partners, would have to manage. It's kind of like what if you picked up an entire client's environment, moved them into your data center, how would you get them connected in? Those rules would apply. So no, the virtual office aspect isn't included in that. Unfortunately, it's a great idea. I'll definitely make a side note of that, but hopefully that helps answer your question for you.